what's happening with Petronet LNG.
Right. Well, at one point, if you look at the stock was up 3%, and one of the reason why, or in fact, the only reason why the stock was up 3% at that moment was the fact that GAIL had released that fourth quarter presentation. Now, in the presentation, if you look at GAIL, they had also given the numbers for their subsidiaries and associate companies. Now, GAIL owns around 12.5% stake in Petronet LNG, which makes Petronet LNG their associate company. And in the presentation, GAIL had mentioned the FY25 profit numbers for Petronet LNG. That number stood at close to 503 crore rupees. Now, this 503 crore rupees is a representative of GAIL's stake in Petronet, which means that if GAIL owns 12.5% stake in Petronet, then his share of profit stands at close to 503 crore rupees. So, which means that if you back calculate this number, you can get the FY25 profit number for Petronet LNG, which stands at close to 4,024 crore rupees. And if you deduct the 9-month profit numbers for Petronet LNG, which stands at close to 2,850 crore, you can get the fourth quarter profit numbers of Petronet LNG, which stands at close to 1,170 crore rupees. Now, this is as per our back calculation. The company is yet to report their numbers, but this profit number of fourth quarter of 1,170 crore is 44% more than what the street had estimated. Street has estimated this number to be close to 814 crore rupees for fourth quarter, but the number that could come in for Petronet LNG is 1,170, and that's the reason why the stock was up at one point of time more than 3% in trade. But the key question here is whether this beat in profitability, is it because of some one-off that could happen in the fourth quarter, or is it because of an operational beat? So that is something that we need to watch out for when it comes to Petronet LNG.
You know, the other stock in focus is Kirloskar Oil. Just before we get to the numbers, it's one of the top gainers today, of course. Kush, are you looking at this on the charts? Of course, massive run-up. Would this be a key for profit booking right now? Just a view on the levels on Kirloskar Oil.
Oh, absolutely. Time to book profits. I mean, it's popped up on the list after a while now, since you mentioned. Now it's coming at a supply zone. If you see, 830 to about 870 is where, there is some congestion. Right now, it's bang in the middle of that range. You could see some profit booking. But I typically like to play momentum, via either a trailing stop loss or, booking partial profit. So I would just book partial profit and hold the rest with a stop loss around the 825 mark. Because, if you get this kind of momentum and there is a follow through, then you might miss out on another about 3 to 5% of gains, if not more.
This is something that you've looked at the numbers for, Samit. You've looked at the numbers for Kirloskar Oil very closely, and they seem to be quite a bumper.
Yeah, there are multiple reasons. Firstly, the stock was an underperformer, and what they have reported in fourth quarter is a very strong set of numbers. It is a beat on all fronts. If you look at the revenue, it's an 8% beat. EBITDA is 10% ahead of what the street was estimating. And net profit, the reported net profit is a 26% beat, but there's a one-off of around 21 odd crore rupees, or around not 21 odd crore rupees. It's around 2-3 odd crore rupees. But if you remove even that exceptional gain that they had, the net profit number is still a beat of around 10 to 11 odd percent. So what happened in this fourth quarter? The company's revenue grew nearly 2% on a YY basis. Now, this growth number might look small, but do remember that fourth quarter last year was a very high base number. Despite that, the company has reported a growth in the fourth quarter numbers. The B2B segment was broadly flat, but the B2C revenues grew nearly 15%. EBITDA came in at 170 crore rupees as against analyst estimates of 160, and B2C segment profitability has started to improve. Last year, this number, or the B2C segment margins, were at close to 5.2%, and now this number stands at around 11%, which means that margins have nearly doubled for the B2C segment. Net profit, adjusted net profit increased around 8%, again a beat also compared to what the street was estimating. And why this Q4 numbers were important is because last year, if you remember, there was a pre-buying action that was seen because of the CP-CBO, that is the generator transition that had implemented from FY25. There was a pre-buying activity that we had seen in the fourth quarter, hence the street was expecting that this year number would be a decline, but despite that, we have seen a growth. Also, if you look at the cash flow situation of the company, that has improved. For operating cash flow has increased by nearly 13%, while the free cash flow has increased by nearly 17%. So overall, a strong set of numbers coming after an underperformance in the share prices that we have seen, and that's the reason why the stock is up 17% in trade.
What a mover this